Yes, Mr. Liver.
Good morning, Mr. Commissioner and members. We are ready to proceed. I've placed before you, Mr. Commissioner, and your members, just for the record, a copy of the media release of the PIC, which was released yesterday, as it will tie in with the evidence of the witness I'm calling this morning. He's ready to take the oath. Just stand up.
Your full names, please.
I am Rufuno Emmanuel Nemakoban.
Do you have any objections to taking the prescribed oath?
No.
If none, then do you swear that the evidence you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Raise your right hand and say, "So help me God."
So help me God.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Have you got another copy? Is there a copy there? Can I have that? Mr. Lafuna, can you start, please, by telling the Commission who you are and your qualifications, background?
Sorry, that's a little bit unclear. Maybe the mic needs to be closer.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. Can you just start your evidence by telling the Commission who you are, when you were employed by the PIC, and your academic qualifications?
My name is Rufuno Emmanuel Nemakovani. I was employed by the PIC in October 2015 in the capacity of Head of Internal Audit, and I still hold the same position today. My qualifications include Certified Internal Auditor, Bachelor of Commerce Honors, Accounting, Certificate in Theory of Accounting, Intermediate Diploma in Accounting, National Diploma in Internal Audit, and I'm a registered government auditor.
Thank you. Can you start your evidence to explain to the Commission the role of internal audit in general and then in particular in the PIC?
Sorry, Mr. Liver, can I just, because yesterday or the day before, there was a statement that we had, I think, I can't remember, whose statement was that was unsigned? There was a statement that the copies that we had were unsigned.
Yes.
And I was just wondering whether you, in fact, we can talk during the break and you can give us a signed copy of the,
Thank you,
of the
Mr.
statement.
Commissioner.
I note that in this one as well,
Yeah.
the witness's statement is unsigned. The ones that we have, yours might be signed, but
I was informed by the Secretariat that it will be sorted out during the tea adjournment.
But just in respect of paragraph 1, the second paragraph, I was employed by the PIC during October 2015, and I've been in its employ since then with interrupted service. Should that be uninterrupted?
I think that is correct. Can you just confirm that?
I confirm that.
Please proceed.
Mr. Commissioner, if also I can just make an administrative correction on page 3, on the second paragraph, the last section there where it starts with, I am currently employed as the Head of Internal Audit and report directly to the Audit and Risk Committee functionally and the CEO of the PIC. I just want to make a correction that after the end, it's supposed to read as, and administratively to the CEO of PIC.
Thank you.
I can proceed?
Yes, please.
Thank you. So, Mr. Commissioner, the PIC Internal Audit Department is a critical function for helping the business to achieve its objective within acceptable risk boundaries through the provision of independent and objective assurance and consulting services to the business, which are informed by existing company policies, applicable laws and regulations, as well as standards and best practice frameworks. The assurance and consulting services entail the assessment of adequacy and effectiveness of PIC governance, risk management, and internal control systems and processes, and in so doing, foster a risk and control conscious culture across the entire business. Internal audit operates as the third line of defense within the combined assurance, and the distinction between its responsibilities and those of other assurance providers is summarized in the diagram below.
Thank you. Mr. Commissioner, can we accept that it's not necessary to read out everything in the diagram, and can he continue in paragraph 4? Thank you. Can proceed.
Authority of internal audit. The authority of internal audit is defined in the audit charter, which is approved by the Audit and Risk Committee of the PIC.
Can we from now on just refer to ARC? Everybody now know what is the Audit and Risk Committee. Okay, thank you.
In terms of the charter, internal audit is authorized to audit or examine any areas of the business, have full and unrestricted access to all the PIC functional areas, records, assets, and employees, determine the scope of its work, which will be selected audit areas, techniques required to accomplish audit objectives, and manage its allocated resources without undue influence from management. Utilize the services of experts in executing some of its activities where it does not have internal capacity. With respect to the independence, in order to facilitate independence and objectivity of the internal audit function, which allows for the impartial and unbiased performance of its activities, the head of internal audit has a dual reporting line, functionally to the Audit and Risk Committee, on issues such as approval of charter, audit plans, communication of audit results, and administratively to the Chief Executive Officer on issues such as compliance with PIC policies and human resource administration. The Internal Audit Department also does not have any direct operational responsibility for the areas they review. It will not implement internal controls, develop procedures, install systems, prepare records, or engage in any other activity that may impair its independence. In addition, the scope of each audit, procedure to be performed, frequency, timing, and content of reports are not subject to management influence.
Can I just then interrupt you? The important point you're making is that you perform independently of the PIC, although you're employed by them.
Yes.
And is the position that the audit charter is reviewed annually by the audit committee?
Yes, the audit charter, together with the internal audit 3-year rolling plan, it's submitted to the audit committee annually for review and approval.
Yes. And the 3-year rollout plan is then annually reviewed and can be changed or added to?
Yes, it's reviewed annually and it is changed where necessary to make sure it's aligned with the current business strategies and processes.
Thank you. Please carry on.
The scope of internal audit responsibilities includes, among other things, the assessment of the adequacy and effectiveness of management systems, policies, and procedures in identifying and managing risks, the effectiveness and efficiency of management systems for achieving PIC objectives, considering organizational risk, effectiveness and efficiency of the PIC means in safeguarding its assets, the adequacy and effectiveness of internal control systems, compliance with laws, regulations, PIC policies, and delegated authorities, the reliability and security of information systems utilized by business, as well as the adequacy and effectiveness of IT operations and governance processes.
Thank you. Carry on.
Internal audit executes its responsibilities by
Question? So one would take that, given that you want to be separate from the business, I mean, one would take that maybe you sit in a different area, and do you have cordial sort of relations with the management in general?
To foster the independence of internal audit, yes, internal audit has got its own division where it's only internal audit employees that sits in that division. In order for the internal audit to be able to achieve its mandate, which is to add value to the organization and also to help the organization to achieve its objective by ensuring that there are strong internal controls, the risk management strategies that are in place are effective, and the governance processes are effective. Internal audit is supposed to have a professional relationship with management.
Meaning you don't go to eat with them, go to the company bar with them and chat and all that?
There is no social relationship. Hence I said it's a professional relationship. So, but I cannot avoid, sitting with them in case we are in the same meeting. I need to be with them in that same meeting.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Internal audit executes its responsibilities by developing and maintaining an audit methodology that is aligned to the internal audit standards, in line with the Institute of Internal Auditors. Preparing a risk-based annual internal audit plan, specifying audits to be conducted during that particular year. So as internal audit, we follow a risk-based audit approach in terms of identifying the areas that we need to focus on. Executing planned and ad hoc audit engagements in line with the audit methodology. So there might be audits that are not part of the approved audit plan. These audits, we may be requested by management to conduct audits in particular areas, or by the board or any subcommittee of the board. So in terms of our mandate enshrined in the Charter of Internal Audit, we can perform those ad hoc audits as long as we get approval from the audit committee.
That's the point I want to make. If you get a request from management to perform a specific audit, that must be authorized by the audit committee.
Yes. Issuing appropriate written reports following the conclusion of each audit and distributing the reports to the appropriate parties. Monitoring management's implementation of corrective actions resulting from audit findings and providing assessments of progress on such actions. reporting periodically to senior management and the Audit and Risk Committee on the results of audit activities and assessment of corrective actions, and providing consulting or advisory services on key projects or activities of strategic importance to the business, liaising and coordinating efforts with other external assurance providers to identify areas of possible reliance. So we will liaise with external auditors or any other assurance providers that is conducting an assurance activity within the PIC to identify, areas of possible reliance, especially, them maybe relying on our work or us, just to avoid duplication in terms of assurance, but also to ensure that the assurance that is being given to the PIC is adequate.
Just to make that clear, with the annual audit, which is normally performed by the Auditor General, and if the work you have done falls into the scope of their audit, they can then decide to rely or not to rely on the work you have performed during the year.
Yes.
Thank you. Carry on.
The activities of internal audit department are subject to quality assurance reviews internally on an annual basis by audit management and externally after every 5 years by a service provider approved by the Institute of Internal Audit.
Just to make that clear, that is a review by the Institute of Internal Audit. It is not a review by the Auditor General.
Yes, this is not a review of the Auditor General. The Auditor General will look at the internal audit function, the independence and the objectivity when they are looking at our work, especially in areas where there is possible reliance. So they need to satisfy themselves that we were independent, we were objective, and the work that we have done, we have complied with the standards that we are supposed to comply with.
Question: do you have term limits for somebody who somebody who runs that department, like you? Are there term limits? Can you run this department for 20 years, or there are term limits?
My position currently, as it stands, is a permanent position, but I've been in this position only for 3 years.
So there are no term limits.
Your term in that position does not expire.
Yes, it's a permanent position. Yes.
Thanks.
I think what you're asking, Mr. Commissioner, is there's a big drive now for rotation of external auditors in business entities. It is not the same problem with regard to internal audit. There's not the same cry out for rotation and for internal audit people to be replaced after 6 or 8 years.
Yes, there isn't anything currently, but maybe I should also state that the independence of the internal audit division, it's reviewed annually also by the audit committee. They need to assess whether the internal audit division, based on the reports and interactions with the head of internal audit and other management from internal audit division, whether do they appear to be independent in terms of the work that they are mandated to do. But also the Auditor General, as I indicated earlier on, when they look at our reports, they consider the independence of the internal audit division. But currently, there is nothing in terms of the law or the standard which prescribes the term of the head of internal audit. The only standard that exists is about the independence and the objectivity of the internal audit division. Sources of input to the internal audit plan. In order to create value, in order to create value and help the organization to achieve its objectives, the internal audit department draws input for the audit plan from the following amongst other sources: corporate level and business unit level strategies, internal audit risk assessment based on the PIC strategic objectives, corporate risk registers and departmental risk registers, license with internal and external assurance providers, audit and risk committee, business management, the international professional practice framework promulgated by the Institute of Internal Auditors. Currently, internal audit planning has a 3-year horizon, and the 3-year plan is subject to annual review to ensure it remains relevant to the business. The audit plan for each financial year is also subject to quarterly review. So on a quarterly basis, we will look at the plan and look at the environment within the business and evaluate if there's a necessity, to change some of the projects that had been approved by the audit committee. And if it's necessary, we will approach the audit committee to approve those changes. Audit approach and methodology. When developing the audit plan, internal audit follows a risk-based approach in prioritizing auditable areas identified from the risk universe. The execution of each individual audit follows 4 phases, namely the planning, field work, reporting, and audit follow-ups. Do I need to go through? Okay. The planning phase, the key activities within the planning phase includes, amongst other things, the introduction of the audit to management, declaration of possible conflict of interest, performing a walkthrough of the audit area, performing preliminary reviews, determining the sampling methodology, determining sample sizes, preparation and communication of engagement letter with the audit scope to the client. In the fieldwork phase, the fieldwork stage entails the testing of the adequacy and effectiveness of controls within applicable areas or business processes. The test procedures that are utilized are designed to provide reasonable but not absolute assurance that controls are properly designed and working effectively. Internal audit uses sample-based testing when selecting transaction to audit. This means that a sample of transaction is chosen in line with the audit methodology, which is sufficient to provide reasonable assurance regarding the entire data or population. In the reporting stage, it entails preparing the audit report, discussing issues with management, obtaining management comments regarding identified issues, and communication of findings to senior management and the audit and risk committee. The follow-up stage, this stage entails assessing whether management has implemented measures to resolve previously reported audit issues and whether the measures taken are sufficient. The service lines or the focus areas that we focus on as internal audit within PIC in respect of assurance and also consulting services are the following: listed investments, unlisted investments, investment support and operations, information technology.
We will later deal with your preliminary investigation into the IO matter. That is then a matter that falls under the listed investments.
That's correct.
Sorry, can I just ask you in proportional terms, what is the proportion of assurance and consulting work that you do? Because there might well be a conflict of interest if you're doing consulting services and your audit approach.
Consulting work that we do, it only comprises 9% of the total work that we do. So,
And you've provided consulting services. How do you audit the areas that you've provided consultation to?
The areas or the transactions that we have consulted, on, in line with our audit methodology and also the standard practices, we have to take a break for a year in that particular area. Or what can be done, so within the internal audit division, like for example in IT, we have a resource that focuses, because there's a lot of projects under IT that we need to consult on to ensure that those projects are successful and add value to the organization. So we have a permanent resource that looks or works on those projects, and that resource is the senior IT project auditor that will be helping with that. But in other areas where we consult, so in line with the audit standards, we need to put measures in place. Like, for example, we have a team so that comprises of a number of professional auditors within the internal audit division. So another mechanism that can be used is to send a different person in the area instead of the internal audit. Or we can put a measure whereby if it's an area that other assurance providers will be focusing on, we don't audit it, we will engage with other assurance providers to look at that area.
Question. Can you give us a sense of the size of your team and what you guys do on a day-to-day basis, please?
So the size of the team in terms of the internal audit organizational structure, we have got 18 positions. Yes, we can refer to paragraph 15. I think we've provided that information. Yes, at the end.
Okay.
So that's the staff complement of internal audit. On a day-to-day basis, what we do is to audit and to follow up, as we indicated under our methodology. So that's what we go to PIC to do on a daily basis. Assurance and consulting engagements. These audits in assurance engagement, these audits entail internal audit objective examination of evidence on a particular subject matter, area or scope against established criteria or standard for the purpose of expressing a conclusion designed to enhance the degree of confidence of the intended users other than the responsible party about the outcome of the evaluation. In assurance engagements, internal audit expresses reasonable and not absolute assurance on the adequacy and effectiveness of internal controls. Consulting engagements. This entails the provision of advisory services, the nature and scope of which is agreed upon with the audit client, and whose objective is to help strengthen the client's governance, risk management, and internal control processes. Examples include providing advisory services on strategic projects, providing input in developing policies, procedures, and participation in committee meetings, among other things. In all instances, the role of internal audit is limited to providing advice and direction without assuming any management responsibility over the area or making any management decision. Section 13, fraud. Management is responsible for designing and implementing measures to facilitate the prevention and detection of fraud. Internal audit is empowered to or has authority to investigate cases of suspected fraud involving employees of the PIC. Employees can report suspected cases either anonymously through the whistleblower hotline managed by whistleblower company or directly to their line managers or to the CEO if the line manager is conflicted.
Can you just elaborate a bit more on this? Is this hotline only available to employees, or can the public also access that hotline?
This hotline is available to both the employees and the public.
And just to give an example, if a person phones into this hotline, how will this report be dealt with?
So according to, so when a matter is reported to the whistleblower company, they will capture the information from the informant, and then they submit a report. And that report is submitted via email to internal audit and risk. So, and the reason...
I'm sorry, I think you're going to give the answer to what I was supposed to ask. Why risk and internal audit?
So the reason why internal audit and risk, it's for in case, so both internal audit and risk, I mean, they are assurance providers as much as at different levels. So they are sitting at the second line of defense and we are the third line of defense. But the main reason why it has a dual reporting line is because in case there's a matter that is being reported and that matter affects internal audit, so that there is another department that will be aware of that matter and be able to take it forward.
A question. Can you give us a sense of some stats within this whistleblowing hotline? I mean, how many complaints do you get generally, say in the past 3 years or so? And which sort of, what percentage do you act on? What percentage don't you? And do you get back to the people who make those calls?
So, in terms of the percentage, I mean, I don't have the information with me, but all I can say is that there are months where it's dry, like there's nothing that will come through via the hotline, and there are months when you know, there will be issues that will be reported. So in a year, I mean, you may deal with, let's say, less than 5 cases or more, depending on, you know, if it's an extraordinary year. All the issues that we act on, I mean, that we receive, if there is sufficient information, I'm saying if there is sufficient information because sometimes some of the reports that you will receive, it will be saying we have observed by somebody who didn't identify themselves irregularities within PIC without even giving you a clear sense of where are these irregularities taking place, by who, and they say, you know, they prefer to remain to their identity not to be disclosed. So it's difficult to act on something like that. So in those cases, usually what we will do, we will respond to the whistleblower company and say they need to contact the person if they have the contact details and ask for more information so that we can be able to deal with this matter effectively, because it is difficult for us to appoint a service provider or to do anything without substance, you know, in terms of information in the report. So all the matters that we receive, they receive adequate attention, they are acted upon, they are looked at, they are evaluated, and when necessary, we also involve external service providers to assist us in these matters.
And the whistleblowers are confident that they are protected under the Whistleblower Act and all that? generally? Do you protect them, and do they feel protected?
Yes, based on my knowledge and experience, whistleblowers are protected, and it is also articulated in the corruption and fraud and nepotism prevention policy of the PIC.
Thank you.
Reports of suspected fraud received through the whistleblower hotline are automatically routed to the executive head of risk as well as the head of internal audit. The CEO has overall responsibility for PIC response to fraud, corruption, and nepotism. For this reason, allegations or reports of suspected fraud are discussed with the CEO before any work is done, except if the CEO is conflicted. Investigations are either conducted internally by the internal audit department or any other PIC party determined by the CEO or the board, or they are outsourced to external service providers in cases where internal audit or PIC does not have capacity or depending on the nature of the case. The investigation reports are communicated to both the CEO and the Audit and Risk Committee. And if the CEO is conflicted or is the subject of the investigation, the report is communicated directly to the chairperson of the board or a committee or a board member delegated by the board. Whistleblowers periodically sends PIC a report of all cases reported through that platform. This report is submitted to the Social and Ethics Committee and the Audit and Risk Committee periodically. So on a regular basis or quarterly, if there are cases, obviously, we will report firstly the cases to the Audit and Risk Committee. We inform them that these are the cases that we have received and this is how we are dealing with those cases. And then also at the time when the investigation is completed, we go back to the Audit Committee and report on the outcome of these matters. But we also report to the Social and Ethics Committee with respect to the activities of the hotline, to say how many cases have we received, what were the nature of the issues, for them to be able to assess if there are any ethical, risks that are posed to the system or to the organization. Difference between audit and investigation. Audit focuses on the objective examination of records, evidence relating to particular system, or processes based on established criteria in order to express an opinion and the adequacy and effectiveness of controls within the system or process. An audit is therefore system process oriented. The scope is generic and the nature of evidence obtained is persuasive. Investigation. An investigation is a detailed examination of records, evidence undertaken in response to reports of impropriety or irregular conduct and focuses on a person against whom the allegations have been made. The scope is specific and the nature of the evidence obtained from an investigation is conclusive. Investigations are usually performed by experts using forensic procedures. Mr. Commissioner, I think I've already covered the part about the resources of internal audit. Thank you.
Mr. Commissioner, I'm now going to deal with two matters that internal audit dealt with in 2018. And I will start off with the first matter that received widespread publicity in the press regarding allegations that the former CEO, Dr. Machila, was involved in impropriety regarding a loan to MST and financial assistance to a so-called girlfriend which was identified as pretty low. Can you just, and I want you, there was a full investigation by my colleague Butler SC with a report dealing with this matter. I just want you to briefly deal and tell the Commission about your involvement in this matter.
So our involvement on this matter began when the board, in a special board meeting that sat on the 15th of September 2017, after they received emails which were sent to the whole organization and also to the board members. Then in that special board meeting...
Can I just interrupt? Sorry. Those were anonymous emails, or not?
So those emails, I mean, were coming from an email with an email address which says James Nugu. So, but within PIC, I don't know anyone who is called James Nugu. So, can I continue? Yes. So, in that sitting of the 15th of September 2017, the board, in an in-camera meeting, they deliberated on these emails which contained all these allegations. And then during the meeting, I was called into the board meeting, to join the board meeting. And when I joined, I was told by the board that there is these allegations that we have received via emails. We would like you to assist the board by looking into these matters. They indicate, if I can just be maybe, code, they said, we would like you to investigate these matters. And then in that meeting, I indicated that looking at the matter, or the nature of the matter, the complexity of this matter, and also the level against which this matter have been, raised, I think it will be appropriate, yes, as internal audit will assist, but we would like to outsource these matters so that they can be dealt with by an external qualified person. And we also, in that meeting, discussed the issues around procurement. How will it be handled? Because in terms of the fraud, corruption, and nepotism policy, the CEO, he's the one that is supposed to approve the appointment of service providers. And in this case, he was conflicted in these matters. So the board had to delegate somebody to assist with the procurement. Then in that meeting, the board appointed a member of the Audit and Risk Committee to be the contact person for internal audit in case we need anything in dealing with this matter. And then I was excused from that sitting. After a while, I was called back to join the proceedings again.
Is it the same day?
This is the same day. Then when I went back into the meeting, I was told that if I can quote, these are marching orders.
What did you understand by marching orders?
This is the instruction now from the board. So the board reviewed the initial decision that they have made, and this is now a revised decision by the board. So a member of the board, take me through the deliberations of the board or the decision of the board. So the decision was saying that you are no longer required now to conduct a forensic investigation into these matters. What you are going to do, because the CEO on the day had given the board written responses together with supporting documents to his responses. Now, what I needed to do, according to the board, I have to review the responses and validate those responses and validate the documents that the CEO has submitted, and also validate whether processes were followed. And then it was agreed in that meeting that this scope will be documented and it will be submitted to me after the meeting, of which it was done, it was documented, I was given the scope, and then we performed the work based on that scope. And based on that scope, we could not identify we could not validate the allegations. Or let me put it this way, based on the scope, we confirmed that the CEO, the documents that he submitted to the board were valid documents. The processes that we were supposed to test, they were followed according to PIC policies, and the responses that were given, except for one matter, that he responded to all the matters except for one matter where he did not respond directly. And this was the matter in relation to the allegation that the CEO has given instruction to a director of an investee company to fund the alleged girlfriend. And then also in the scope, the board had indicated that internal audit should not use any external resources, so we need to use our own resources. And also it was indicated in the scope that we should not also look at issues that relate to personal relationships.
So if I understand you correctly, the allegation about the funding of MSD, the finding was there's absolutely no substance in that allegation. Is that correct?
Yes. So the allegation was saying that PIC has used the CSI money to fund the alleged girlfriend. I think the amount in terms of the allegation, I think it was 21 million or 23 million. So during our assessment or during the execution of the work that we were instructed to do by the board, there was no CSI funding to the alleged girlfriend or MST of the amount of 21 million. There was a loan under assets under investment, which was extended to MST of 21 million. But also there was the CSI funding of 5 million that was given to MST.
Did you also deal with the second part of the investigation? Were you involved?
Sorry, just a question on that. Was that loan ever repaid? Was there any evidence of the loan being repaid or serviced?
At the time we were performing the work we were instructed to do, the loan was being serviced.
The loan had been?
It was being serviced,
I see.
yes. Can I ask that you clarify the question, please?
You mentioned in your evidence that there was one matter that the CEO did not respond to, and you were then asked to deal with that.
So we gave feedback to the board, we completed our work, and then we went, there was a special board meeting, I think that set on the 29th of September, 2017. And that's where we presented the report as per the scope that we were given. And then we also reported that the CEO did not directly deal with the allegations with respect to he gave the instruction to a director of an investee company. And the board, I was recused from the meeting after I presented the report. Then I came back, I was called back again. And when I went back, the board indicated to me that they accept the report that internal audit has done or has presented, but they would like to request me to deal with this element where we are saying that the CEO did not directly address the issue of the instruction. And they said, I need to deal with this matter on the same day before the board adjourns. So I need to go and interview the CEO. And afterwards, I need to also interview Mr. Lawrence Muraudzi. And I did what the board requested me to do. I spoke to the CEO, who gave me his verbal responses. And then I also called Mr. Lawrence Muraudzi, and we had a conversation over the phone. So, if I may, maybe just address the outcome of the interviews.
You don't have to go into the detail of that. If you can just explain to the Commission what was the finding.
So the final outcome, obviously after the interview, I went back to the board, I presented the outcome. And the outcome was that, yes, the CEO has requested Mr. Lawrence Muraudzi to assist the two ladies with the funding after their company was experiencing financial problems. And then he also indicated that according to him, he understood that was supposed to be a loan when he asked Mr. Muraudzi. That should have been a loan. So then I also asked how was he communicating with Mr. Muraudzi. Indicated to me that this was via WhatsApp, and also with the ladies. He was also communicating with them via the phone, like sending, messages and all that. So then I asked him, to excuse himself because we were meeting in a boardroom, and to give me the contact details of Mr. Mrauzi, of which he provided. And I called Mr. Mrauzi, I gave him the background, why am I calling him, I identified myself. And then I asked Mr. Mrauzi, how did he know these two ladies? He indicated that he was introduced to them by the CEO. He had never met them before. The CEO contacted him. And then, the deliberations went on, but then he confirmed that he received a communication from the CEO. He received the sheriff correspondences which were given to the ladies. So I think by now those ladies, they have sent them to the CEO. He confirmed that he received them via WhatsApp, indicating that their business, they've been locked out because I think they were defaulting in terms of the rent. So then he indicated that he assisted the two ladies with 300,000, which was paid in two separate payments of 150,000 each. Then I asked him whether, according to him, firstly I needed for him to confirm whether this was an instruction from the CEO. He said no, it was it was a request. Then I went further on to ask him also whether would he have said no to the CEO with respect to this request, and he indicated that he couldn't. So what he stated is that he couldn't because PIC has funded, his transactions before. Then I asked him whether this, according to him, was an instruction from the CEO. He said no, this was a request. And then I asked him, was this a loan or was he just assisting them? He said no, this is not a loan, he's not expecting any repayment from them. So this is the feedback that was given to the board on the day.
Yeah. Can you perhaps elaborate that Mr. Malawadzi said whether it was paid from his personal account or from a public, from a legal entity? Did he tell you that?
So I did ask him that question, and his response was that this came from his personal account.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, Mr. Commissioner and members, this matter was fully dealt with in a commission of inquiry or a forensic investigation, not a forensic investigation by my colleague Butlender, SC. The report will be handed in as an exhibit to the commission, not today but at a later stage. I plan to deal now with the second investigation dealing with the suspensions yesterday. I see it is nearly 11 o'clock for the tea adjournment. I plan to try and finish at 11:30, Mr. Commissioner. May I, with your leave, continue, and that perhaps we can have, after we finish at 11:30, the tea.
Certainly, if the witness has not finished his evidence by that time, we'll carry on.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
I now want you to deal with what happened this week at the PIC and the resultant suspension of Mr. Madavu and other officials. And I want to start by referring the Commission to the press release issued by the PIC yesterday, where it is stated in paragraph 2 that a preliminary investigation report was submitted to the board on 21 January 2019. The preliminary report clearly reflects a blatant flouting of governance and approval processes of the PIC. Employees of the PIC have also been implicated in these irregularities. Now, to start your evidence on this aspect, let me say, you performed this investigation, is that correct?
That's correct.
Who instructed you to perform this investigation?
I was requested by the acting CEO to provide or to perform, further analysis or to gather additional information and perform further analysis on the finding that internal audit had raised and reported in May 2018 when we were conducting our normal audit in the listed investment space.
I just want,
So,
sorry to interrupt you. I just want to have the timelines very specific for the Commission. You filed an audit query in May 2018.
yes,
Where you raised specifically the AO investment matter.
yes. So I must clarify that this was an audit that was being performed on the listed equities process. So it was not like a specific audit on the AO matter.
Yeah.
AO was one of the samples that were selected.
Exactly. That was an audit performed in terms of your audit plan.
That's correct.
And it was one of the samples selected.
That's correct.
Right. And your finding in this audit query, what was it about?
So the finding in this audit query, it was transaction not ratified. During the review of a sample of transactions, internal audit noted that the IO technology transaction IPO share subscription form was signed off on 14 December 2017 and confirmed with the listing agent before approval of the transaction by PMC listed on 20 December 2017.
Can you just repeat that?
During the review of a sample of transactions, internal audit noted that the IO Technology Solutions IPO share subscription form was signed off on 14 December 2017 and confirmed with the listing agent before approval of the transaction by PMC listed on 20 December 2017.
Do I understand it correctly? It means that it was signed off before the meeting of the 20th of December.
It was signed off before the delegated committee could approve.
Is that in breach of the policies of the PIC?
It is.
And that was the query raised in May.
Yes.
And did you receive a written response by management to that query?
Yes. I received a management comment, and here they indicated that the people who will be responsible for this matter is the Chief Executive Officer, Executive Head listed, and the General Manager listed equities.
What happened to this query that you raised?
This query, so as part of the normal procedure, when we raised issues during the audit, we will discuss with the management of the relevant department. And this matter was also discussed with the CEO. And after the report was signed off, it was discussed. Firstly, I discussed it on the day of the audit committee. I had a meeting with the chairman of the audit committee then.
Who was the chairperson at the time?
Ms. Tanta Swafupu.
Yes.
I discussed this matter with her because according to us, this was a very sensitive matter. So I needed to have a meeting with her. Like normally we have brief meetings before we go into the normal audit and risk committee meeting. So this was one of the matters that I discussed with her, and I indicated to her that this matter did not submit it through the normal process, which is to submit all the reports via the company secretary, and it goes to all the members, including invitees of the audit and risk committee. So I would want to table this matter in the in-camera meeting of the audit and risk committee. I have printed copies, which I will distribute in that meeting, given the sensitivity around this matter. And also that decision was informed by, within PIC during that time. It was when we were having a problem, of information that was leaking. So I was concerned that this issue also, it might be leaked because it was receiving, an extended public media coverage as well. So I thought, the prudent way of dealing with this matter, it is the way that, I dealt with it. And then in the in-camera meeting with the audit committee, I tabled the matter, and the resolution of the audit committee was that I need to take this matter to the investment committee of PIC, and of which I did, and I tabled the matter in the next IC meeting. IC, I'm referring to the investment committee, and this matter was deliberated in that meeting extensively.
I'm sorry to interrupt you again. Just to again make it clear that, and I refer to the ARC, that's the Audit Risk Committee. The ARC consists of board members.
It consists of non-executive directors who are board members.
Yes. And can you just tell the Commission the investment committee consists of?
The investment committee, it consists of, majority is the non-executive directors, but also the executive directors, they sit in there.
Is that the CEO and the CFO?
Yes.
And that query was tabled at the IC and debated extensively.
Yes.
What was the outcome, do you know?
So we deliberated the matter in the meeting. The relevant management were present in that meeting. We deliberated on this matter, and then at the end, we managed to prove that there was a process breach, or there was a problem with the process. It was not followed, and that this was not disclosed in the meeting of 20 December to the Portfolio Management Committee, where this transaction was tabled for approval. So at the end, we were recused from the meeting.
Okay, let's deal with two matters. Who were sitting as the committee, were the members on the 20th of December, 2017?
Mr. Commissioner, I will try my best, but I think the minutes of that particular meeting can also, confirm, who were present in that meeting. But the chairman of the investment committee was there.
Can I just first find out, why do you say you'll try your best? Is it that you
So
try
what
to
I'm trying
remember?
to say is that I'll try my best to remember, who was there in that meeting. But I'm saying that, whatever I say obviously is subject to correction, and that can be confirmed in the minutes, because there were minutes that were captured of that meeting. The chairman of the investment committee was present, and so the other members, I don't know through your chair if I need now to mention names or...
Chair, can I just perhaps give some clarity? The investigation by the witness is a preliminary investigation. It is still ongoing, and we don't want to jeopardize that investigation by going into too much detail today. I will just deal with the broad aspects of this investigation. It is also the subject of a forensic investigation by the forensic team of this commission, which is in an advanced stage. So I've agreed with the witness that if he is uncomfortable disclosing names or issues, that he will tell me that, and that's the basis for informing the commission that that is why we're doing it.
So, through you, Mr. Commissioner, I think all I can say about the people who were present in the meeting is that the meeting, as far as I understand it, was corrected. So, and the minutes can be made available to the commission of that sitting.
And the minutes will contain those names.
The minutes will, yes, have the names of people who were present in the meeting.
If I understand you correctly, you feel uncomfortable to mention the names at this hearing, at this open hearing.
I'm not feeling uncomfortable per se. The discomfort is, I don't want to mention, that people who were there maybe were not there, because I can't remember exactly who was there.
I understand.
Right now.
I understand.
Yes.
All right. Now, since May till December, when you received this further instruction to have another look at this transaction, was anything done about this audit query?
So, maybe I just need to, also present to the commissioner that, as far as I know, the IC, I think from when the media started, raising questions around this transaction, IC also started, making inquiries with management in terms of the process that has been followed around this transaction. And management have been, giving responses to the IC. And this was during, up until the May, end of May. And we reported this issue during that time. But subsequent to that, this matter now and then will be discussed, but not specifically the issue that internal audit has raised.
Well, perhaps I should put it another way. After your last engagement with the IC in May 2017, did anybody engage with you regarding this query before you received an instruction in December 2017 to again look at the matter?
I don't remember those engagements.
Right. Just to get the timeline right, we know that the PIC made a presentation to SCOPA in Parliament. I think it was on the 6th of December 2018. And SCOPA raised certain queries regarding inter alia this transaction. You received your instruction to look at the matter again after this meeting in Parliament. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you received it from the present acting CEO?
Yes.
Motsepe More.
Yes. So if I may clarify, Mr. Commissioner, so the instruction was that the acting CEO has received a letter from the chairman of the board of PIC raising concerns about the issues that were revealed at Scopa in relation to the IO transaction. And he wanted to understand what has been done around this issue. And were there any actions that were taken against the people who were responsible for this matter? And then the CEO approached me. I think in that meeting I was with the executive head of human resource to say, this is the instruction that I've received. Head of internal audit, can you, I was looking at your finding, but in the finding, you are not giving us like the exact name, like who contributed to this matter, the non-compliance. So what I want you to do is to gather more information to say who were the people responsible for breaching the PIC processes. And, based on that report, I will be able to deal with this matter. So we worked based on that basis. We engaged with the relevant people who were involved in the investment process. We held interviews with with all of them, including the assurance divisions. By that I mean legal, who performed the DD, environmental and social and governance division, who performed the ESG DD, and also the risk division, who performed the risk DD. So we interviewed all these people, and then I gathered all the information, now going deeper beyond the normal audit, whereby we wanted to understand how were instructions given to the various people, So, and that was the information that the CEO wanted to know, so that we can assess, where this breach, to what extent, and who were responsible, so that, we can be able to satisfy the request of the chairman.
Sorry, just for clarity, because this is, I'm not quite sure I've followed everything. What you're now describing of what you've been asked to look at is exactly what you alerted them to in your May audit.
So,
but you're now going more deeply into that. It's the same issue that you alerted in the May general audit that you were doing, where it had come through the normal audit process, that you were concerned about the timelines and that this was approved before the committee had met. So it's the same issue. The difference is now it is end of the year and you're looking at it in more detail as an instruction. But
yes.
It was not a new issue because it had been brought through to the investment committee and the board at earlier stage in the year. Is that
This
correct?
was not a new issue. It was just to now drill deeper into the root causes and the role players, what transpired here. Where did the system started failing? Because something failed in order for this issue to occur.
But in reality, your first report to the audit committee in May should have alerted and had that investigation as a follow-through, because it brought the matter to the attention of the audit committee and the investment committee.
The matter was brought to the audit committee, the matter was brought to the investment committee. So, and that's where it ended.
Well, and nothing actually happened until the instructions from the chairman of the board.
Nothing happened, yes, as far as I understand.
All right. In summary, can I just ask, you prepared a preliminary review report, which is a private and confidential report of an ongoing investigation It's a 94-page report dealing in detail with processes, people involved, etc. Is that correct?
Yes.
I'm not going to ask you at this stage, for the reasons explained to the Commission, why I'm not going to go into detail in this report. But in summary, it seems to me your report concluded exactly what the press statement says, that there was blatant flouting of governance and approval processes of the PIC in this transaction. Is that correct?
The PIC processes that governs the listed investment processes were breached.
Well, let me name a few examples. As I understood the evidence of the previous witnesses, like Mr. Fidelis Madabu, Mr. Roy Rajar, and these people, in the listed space, when there's a transaction coming into the PIC, it must be firstly introduced to the Portfolio Management Committee. Is that correct? Or not? I know for unlisted there's the screening committee before it goes to the Portfolio Committee, but with listed, it seems to me, if I understood them correctly, it goes to the Portfolio Committee first.
That is the first committee where the transaction will be tabled. So the Portfolio Management Committee has got two phases. There is the first phase, which is the committee where the transaction will first be introduced to the committee, and the committee will have to approve for the transaction team to go to perform a due diligence. And then after they have done or conducted all the due diligences, there will be a second committee which will approve the committee, the transaction. If, according to the DOA, this matter has to go maybe to a higher committee, which in this case will be a subcommittee of the board, that committee will approve that the transaction goes to that higher committee. But in this case, the Portfolio Management Committee, this transaction was within their delegation of authority in this case. So it was the final approving committee, this PMC2.
Question? And please tell me if you can answer the question or not. So I've got two questions, so please let me know. Transactions follow a chain, of events and all that. And you say governance processes were flouted and were flouted. At which stages of the transactions were this done? As a first question, maybe. I'll come to the second one.
So, firstly, the process of PMC1 didn't happen. And the due diligence were began before PMC1. But PMC1 never happened, which is the committee where the transaction will first be introduced and they approve that it goes to due diligence. Secondly, the transaction or the irrevocable agreement was signed on the 14th without going to PMC1, without going to PMC2.
Sorry, when you refer to the 14th, you're referring to 14 December
14 December 2017. Thirdly, the memo or the payment document that is supposed to be approved by the CEO, that was approved on the 19th of December 2017 before the meeting on the 20th of December, although payment was released subsequent to that meeting, but the actual approval in the memo happened before.
To your personal knowledge, when you started there till now, has it ever happened before?
This is the first time that I have seen, something like this within PIC.
My second question, if this happens, if the so-called blatant, this blatant flouting of the laws, of the processes, what happens to the transaction? Is it fatal to the transaction, and what happens to the people within the PIC who conducted it?
So, where there is this kind of things, obviously, action needs to be taken against the people who are responsible in line with the PIC policies and the laws of the country. So by the laws, I mean the labor laws and regulations, because when you take action against employees, you need to make sure that you do it within the laws of the country.
In the transaction, what happens to it?
So I have never, like as I indicated, for the period that I've been with the PIC, there has never been like a situation like this one. So I think, as far as I understand, it's a matter that the board will have to work on.
Thank you.
Would there have, in the process of approval for such an investment, would there have been a requirement to consult the client? I'm assuming the GEPF.
So as it was indicated, I think, by the acting company secretary, that PIC has got a discretionary mandate, meaning that PIC can invest without consulting the client. So, but in this case, I don't have information, which indicates that the client was consulted before the investment was made. I don't have that information. But PIC, all I'm trying to say is that they've got a discretionary mandate, and they can make an investment without consulting a client.
Yes, and yes, it's within the DOA also.
Yes,
of that,
yes.
Of the PMC.
Yes.
It might be within the DOA, but the question, what the size of this transaction that we're talking about, this particular element of it, was how big?
This transaction was for 4.3 billion. Yes, it was within the DOA of the PMC listed investment.
The investment, just for the record, Mr. Commissioner, was it for a percentage of the shares or for 100% of the shares?
So, through you, Mr. Commissioner, the private placement by IO, the final private placement, which was issued on the 13th of December 2017, it was for 4.3 billion, and PIC subscribed for 100% of that private placement of 4.3 billion.
Just on that, if one had to look at the share price at the time and the share price now, what would that be? Has it been a good investment, or where does it stand?
Chair, I think, it's a public knowledge that the share is not performing very well. Whether it will pick up in the future, I wouldn't know. But as far as it stands currently, it's not, looking good for now, but I'm not sure about the future.
Just in relation to what was paid at the time, and now it's about half at this present time of what was paid initially, if I remember
If I can
correctly.
assist, Mr. Commissioner, the PIC paid 43 rand per share, and I think it was trading at 22 rand a share this morning.
I think it's 3 rands a share now from what I saw. 3 rands, I think, last time I read, from I think 43 rands a share. Yeah, I think it was 43 rands to subscribe for the shares. And the last reports I read, I think 2 days ago, so they said it's 3 rands a share. I hope I'm right. I don't know.
I didn't check, those facts like recently, but all I know is that the share price has declined significantly since the investment was made. Where it's sitting today, I don't know.
Question. The people who flouted these processes, did they give some reasons why they did this? Did you look into that?
Chair, through you, may I please not, for now, respond to that question, given that this is still work in progress.
All right, we'll give you that indulgence. I suppose Mr. Lebo, Advocate Lebo would have told you that you might be called to come back. Am I correct?
Yes,
Is that so?
yes.
Yes, thank you.
This is as far as I can take you today, Mr. Commissioner. Unless there's any further questions to this witness, that will conclude the proceedings for the day.
All right, there's just one question. there.
Just a final general question about your department. In terms of performance appraisals, who does them? Are they done by the CEO? And salary increases and bonuses, who actually undertakes that? I'm just looking at issues like security of tenure and those kind of issues.
So the process, we will, develop our balance scorecard as internal audit in line with the audit plan. And I will discuss that with the CEO, but I will submit it to Audit and Risk Committee for approval. Then also, in terms of appraisals, I will follow the same process. So the Audit and Risk Committee is the committee that has got the final say.
And salaries and bonuses, who determines them?
So the salaries and bonuses will be based on the balance scorecard rating, and that will follow the HR policies. So it's not like somebody, will just determine an amount. So it has to follow the HR policies approved by the board.
Okay, thanks.
Chairperson, there's just one last question that I've asked all the other witnesses. You've been with the PIC since 2015.
Yes.
From then till date, apart from this matter, are there any other matters of impropriety that you have discovered during your term?
In relation to investments or generally?
General, investments and general.
Generally, we have dealt, I think, in 2016 with a matter where an employee, was or falsified some documents, and we have also recently, in respect of this IO report, this report which contained the IO finding, which we issued in May. So this report, I was called by a former employee saying that they have got this report. It's an electronic version, but they cannot access it because it was password protected. And I asked them, where did they get it from? You know, and they didn't want to tell me where they got the information from. But they sent the same report to the executive head of HR, which is a proof that they have the report. Then the executive head of HR sent me the report. I managed to, like, you know, put in the passwords, and I see that this is our report. So that's another matter. Currently,
Meaning there's a leakage.
the report was leaked. I don't know how it was taken out from the system, but the report was taken out, but the employee could not access it because it was password protected. Because as I explained earlier on, this matter, we considered it as, you know, very sensitive matter. So we protected it. And then currently, I mean, we are dealing with the VBS issues. Internally as PIC, there are investigators that are working on this to look at whether, firstly, the employees who were directors at VBS representing PIC, as far as it concerns the transactions that PIC entered into with VBS, did they compromise, you know, PIC processes, or were they compromised? And also to look at whether are there any other employees that may have been compromised in this whole, you know, VBS-related issues internally, compromising now the PIC as far as investment processes are concerned, and also to look at the matter that relates to the 5 million back. So we have been working on this as internal audit. As it was announced when these matters came out, I think then it was by the CEO to say that PIC will conduct investigations to look at these matters and the impact to PIC. So that we have appointed, so we were approached as internal audit, were given powers by the board to say we need to appoint a service provider, and the service provider is doing the work currently. So that is one other matter that I think it may, you know, fall, depending on the issue. I mean, there are issues that have already been confirmed by the report that have been issued by, you know, the investigators of VBS, but also internally we don't know what the investigation is going to come out with.
The documents you refer to that were falsified, is that investment documents or other type of documents?
It's support functions documents.
Dealing with investments?
They were dealing with the numbers relating to investments, like reporting numbers.
So the numbers were changed?
Yeah, the numbers were changed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Just wanted to just go back to one issue which you mentioned. The PIC took 100% of the placement of IO shares.
Yes.
Is there a policy within the PIC saying it can never take 100%, it can only take a certain percentage, and the other investors should put in some money there?
So the policy currently, you will have, I mean, the mandate, but the mandate does not specifically say for a specific investment, you know, you need to take so much of the private placement. But we engaged with the team, and they indicated that, you know, in terms of IPOs, except in cases where you have got like specs, you know, where you'll find that PIC is there like a lead investor in that? Normally they can take 100% and then other investors will come in later on. But in this case, I'm not sure if there are any other cases where this happened, but the listed team was saying normally they will take, I think, between 30 and 50%. That is their information, but there is no policy that I can say, I can verify that against. They are saying that normally given the strategy of PIC, so even this one in our engagement, they were justifying it around the strategy, in terms of driving the transformation.
Okay, yeah. This we need for our recommendations, so it's why I'm asking you that question. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner.
Mr. Lever, am I correct that this is the last day for this week?
Yes.
And we will continue from the 28th until Wednesday next week, 28, 29, 30.
That is correct.
That's correct. Right. The hearing will then be adjourned until 10 o'clock on Monday, the 28th of January, 2019.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner.